All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Campbell. I'm one of the founders at Kudos. And today we're going to talk about how we at Kudos are planning to help onboard new developers and contributors in the Polkadot ecosystem. And so, first, a quick intro of the team. We're a team of 3 technical co-founders. Aside from the Kudos project, Igor, my colleague, is currently working at Astar. He's working on the swanky smart contract CLI, which some of you may have heard of. Leandro, he's a full-stack software engineer. He's got years of experience in blockchain. And I'm also a full-stack developer. I'm currently working with the Excavate project, which is hopefully going to be launching on Polkadot sometime soon. We're also all graduates of the UC Berkeley edition of the Polkadot Blockchain Academy. And kind of actually it's where kind of Kudos kind of was thought up. So it kind of brings me nicely onto my next slide, mentioning the Academy. But kind of before we get on to kind of like what Kudos is and what it aims to do to kind of increase developer engagement, I thought I'd mention some of the existing ecosystem initiatives that are already out there, some of the collectives that are already aimed at kind of developers and contributors. And so obviously, firstly, we've got the Polkadot Blockchain Academy. It's a truly amazing initiative. It's run by a fantastic team. It now offers 2 tracks, one for founders, the other for engineers. It's 5 weeks, it's intensive, it's in person, and it's basically designed to seed the ecosystem with skilled developers, but also provide the support for founders looking to launch on Polkadot. I think the applications for the Singapore wave have just closed, but if it's something of interest, I'd definitely recommend 100% 100% recommend to apply. Next up, we've obviously got the Polkadot Fellowship. Now, this is an on-chain collective, for those who don't know. They're basically the core protocol developers. Their aim is to basically steward and retain the technical expertise over the Polkadot meta protocol. And, it's a salaried kind of position. They're rank-based. New members are inducted by existing members. And I think induction typically needs to be evidenced by contributions to the Polkadot SDK repo. So kind of more on that later. We've also got the Polkadot Developer Heroes program. And this is a really cool initiative as well. This is also run by another Polkadot Blockchain Academy alumna, Lauren Lee. It aims to create a strong developer community in the Polkadot space, and they're really kind of, I think, trying to upskill the developer community, kind of foster a sense of, kind of like community knowledge sharing, mentoring, and just trying to make the developer community more of a kind of a welcoming space. And lastly, I'll give an honorary kind of a shout out to the Polkadot Dev channel on YouTube and Twitch. And so, if you guys haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend. But they produce some really amazing content. Particularly, I have to recommend the Polkadot deep dive sessions. So normally you've got someone that will kind of give you a real in-depth walkthrough of maybe a palette, and really get into how it works, and just give you the real kind of underlying and fundamental information of how you could utilize it yourself. There's probably a few more out there that I'm not aware of. So if you know any, feel free to shout them out. We'd love to connect with them. And you might be thinking, at this point, it seems like there are already quite a few initiatives out there in the Polkadot space that are aimed at developers. And maybe do we need another one? My answer is obviously yes. And I'll kind of give some of the motivations kind of for that answer. And interestingly, some of the motivation for the Kudos project, it was generated at the previous Sub0 in Lisbon. And kind of the story goes is that, there was quite a few alumni. We just kind of graduated. We were talking about life post-academy. And one of the themes that came up was kind of like the difficulty in finding an immediate role right out of the academy. And that was kind of the tail end of last year. So it was, I'd say, maybe down to a bad winter job market. There was obviously a global tech hiring slowdown. But nevertheless, I think there was a lack of kind of open roles in the Polkadot space at the time. And at least in our case, it led to many skilled individuals from our cohort finding jobs in other blockchain ecosystems, or just kind of going back to Web 2. And so for us, we kind of felt like, that's a real kind of crying shame, because obviously the community had invested in these people. They'd invested heavily in themselves to go to this in-person thing. It's 5 weeks. At least on the engineers track, we had to go through 4 really grueling assignments. And to not end up with a position at the end of it, it kind of felt like a bit of a shame, a bit of maybe a waste of potential. And so for other people, it wasn't really so much about finding a role. It was more about how do you keep your Substrate skills kind of sharp, right? How do you stay sharp after the academy? And obviously, one potential way to do that is to just contribute to some of these open source repos. There's over 70 parachain teams. You can just pick up an issue and get cracking. But what does that process actually look like if you want to kind of find some issues and find something for you to work on? Well, what does that actually look like? So you probably start with trying to locate the active repos for the parachain teams, seeing if there's anything open that kind of makes sense. But there's over 70. There's sometimes 20, 30 different repos. Some of them are active, some of them are not. They might be in different languages that you might not be familiar with. And that's just the parachain team, so that's not even including the teams that are working on smart contract tooling and all the rest of it. So, and in fact, actually, there was a report by Electric Capital, and I think they said that there's 25,000 active repos within the Polkadot ecosystem at the moment. So, finding your next thing to work on, it might not be that easy. It's not an easy task by any means. And then, so I think one of the other things that we were thinking, so say you find a repo that you like. Are there any issues that are even open? Are there any issues that kind of have got the necessary context for you to get started? And so one of the things that we noticed was that there are lots of, not to point fingers at anyone, but there are lots of issues that are out there, and sometimes they're just like an error blob, no context, and it's really quite difficult. It kind of serves as a bit of friction for a new person that wants to get involved. And so there's lots of kind of these poorly written issues, and I think that's another kind of stumbling block that we kind of hope to maybe fix. And in fact, the Polkadot Fellowship's Sean Tabrizi, I don't know if anyone saw this post, but he kind of mentioned that the current distribution of issues, like the open issues that are on GitHub across the ecosystem, they probably kind of follow a bell curve, with the majority of the issues requiring a kind of a core developer experience, like someone that's intermediate level. But the majority of kind of new contributors, they're looking for good first issues, or kind of issues that may be labeled as kind of easy, kind of things to get your foot in the door. And so that's kind of a bit of a disconnect. And then I think lastly, we were really inspired by the various decentralization efforts that are going on in the Polkadot space at the moment. OpenGov right now, I guess, is the world's largest DAO, clearly. I'm sure we've all been seeing, the treasury proposals that have been flying in. And, obviously this very event is sponsored by the treasury, so I'll actually, take this moment to say thank you to everyone that voted to make this happen. And, I guess that's just decentralization within the Web3 space, right? It's not even really talking about Web 2. Or I guess we're expected to be kind of, ahead of the game in terms of decentralization. But even in the Web 2 space, post-COVID, we saw the move to kind of a more remote, more asynchronous kind of work model. And so I think contrary to all the naysayers who said that remote work, async work would never work, companies kept turning a profit, small startups kept popping up, and there was no large overhead for the offices. And so it really made things more efficient. And so at Kudos, we think that we can help contribute to a more decentralized future by kind of laying down the infrastructure, the tooling that's needed to allow teams to operate in a more flexible kind of decentralized way. And so from these motivations arose 2 questions. One was basically, how do you get more developers contributing? How are you going to engage with these developers who they're keen to get involved, they're keen to contribute, but they lack a straightforward way to connect with the appropriate opportunities? And then secondly, it was, how do you create win-win situations between projects and contributors, and potentially even the wider community? How do you create those positive feedback loops? And so this kind of brings me on to Kudos. So first of all, what is Kudos? The TLDR is that Kudos is a platform designed to streamline the process of onboarding. So we make it simple to browse, search, and filter open GitHub issues and contributions from across the entire ecosystem. So all of the parachain teams and many of the other kind of repos that are in the Substrate kind of Polkadot Sama space. And so we make it easy for people to find these issues, to filter them, and kind of filter them by things, by their interests, but also by their skill level, by the languages that they know. But not only that, we also kind of developed some interesting tech where we can allow maintainers to tag an issue with a custom incentive. So this could be anything from a native token, it could be an NFT, it could be a POAP, but also kind of many more things. And we're also kind of looking at kind of launching an ecosystem-wide version of the Substrate tip bot. So you guys might have seen this maybe if you're lurking on the Polkadot SDK repo, but there's something called the Substrate tip bot, which basically is used by the maintainers there to reward work that's done on the Polkadot SDK repo. And so we're looking to launch something similar, but for the entire ecosystem. And lastly, we're also kind of working with some ecosystem teams at the moment. Obviously, it's still very early days, but we've got some real interest at the moment. And what we're planning to do is basically curate some sets of some high quality and context-rich issues, which maybe people coming out of the Polkadot Blockchain Academy, maybe people that are in the Polkadot Developer Heroes, or maybe just people that are coming from a different blockchain ecosystem altogether. But something that's just high quality, context rich, with potentially an incentive that's linked to it. And so I'll give you a quick demo of what we've got so far. So our site is www.morekudos.com, and let me see if I can just navigate to this. Okay. Okay, so this is the site as it stands. And so basically what you're seeing is our homepage. Obviously, we're still in our alpha at the moment, so don't expect bugs. There could be small things that are wrong. But as it stands, basically, these are the latest list of issues that are basically aggregated across all of the different kind of parachain teams and teams that kind of are active in the space. They're currently kind of just like, these ones are obviously just the latest ones, so you can see they're ranked by age. And so, obviously we're seeing, issues. So basically what we're trying to do is say that, like, if you wanted to kind of check Pendulum, Polkadot SDK, OpenSquare, Subspace, Invart, you'd probably have to go to their individual GitHub repos and go through the issues list. But right now, you can just do it from one place. But kind of further than that, if we think of someone that's maybe coming from the EVM space or from the Ethereum space, maybe they've heard about the EVM chains that exist on Polkadot, right? But they're not really too clued up. They don't really know exactly what they are. And so we're thinking that someone might come onto the site, have a look at the interests. So we've categorized some of the repos and the teams by interest. And so if we maybe went down to, let's have a look for EVM. So, obviously the familiar faces are here. We've got Astar, we've got Moonbeam, and someone could actually just come here and have a look at the latest issues. If they're keen to contribute, they're going to be able to find these issues, in a much kind of smoother way than having to kind of poke around and kind of figure out where they are. Again, you can. And so one thing that we're also going to be working on is like a notification system, right? So you can be notified when issues that match a certain criteria that you're interested in kind of drop. So you'll be first to know. Right now, this could just be like a link that you might bookmark. But if we want to have a look at some other examples, maybe like just even like filtering. Rust is obviously like the big language that everyone's kind of learning these days. But maybe you're more of a TypeScript person. You might just want to have a look and see, from this angle, kind of what's going on. And if we have a look at maybe projects, it's another way to kind of just have this is obviously very basic at the moment. We're planning to build this out and have project homepages and quite a few other features. But if we had a look at maybe say like Hydra DX, and you're more into UI, you get an easy overview of what's going on, and you might be able to find something that suits you. Here, another thing that we've done is to introduce this kind of good first issues checkbox. And so across the ecosystem, across the different repositories, different repos will make use of different labels, right? So this good first issues checkbox basically aggregates the different kind of good first issue label types across various different repos, right? So there's obviously no standardized nomenclature right now. So we've kind of done the work for you to kind of like provide an easy way to see all of the issues across the Polkadot ecosystem that are marked as good first issue, and would probably be a good stepping stone for you to get involved in. So you could just check this box and maybe see that update. So maybe Hydra DX doesn't have any good first issues, but all of these ones would be marked as one of these tags, right? And then if we have a look up here, if anyone's interested in giving us some feedback, please do browse to the site. If you're a contributor, we'd love to hear from you. But also, if you're a project maintainer, we'd love to hear from you. I mentioned that we're looking for chances to collaborate with maintainers and projects, because we are kind of thinking about this concept of agile dev time. So kind of like a play on the agile core time, right? So agile dev time, as we see it, is like there is a huge untapped massive latent potential within the Polkadot ecosystem in terms of like developers who want to contribute and get involved. And what we're thinking is that we want to work with projects to kind of draw out some of the issues or some of the tasks that they might have amongst their team. So within any team, there's normally kind of like these fuzzy tasks, right? That everyone knows is a good thing to probably work on, but maybe you don't have the manpower, maybe you don't have the time to allocate to it. And we want to partner with teams to kind of draw these issues out and basically feature them on our platform. And we're hoping that we can help teams actually ship faster in this way, because they'll be able to kind of focus their core team on the heavy lifting. And maybe there's things that are, like revamping documentation, building some kind of testing tools, and you could kind of offload this to kind of developers that are utilizing our platform. So if you want to give us some feedback, we'd love to hear from you. And also, if you want to include your project, please do. You can, let's see if this works. You can basically fill out this issue report, list the name of your project, and submit that for us. And yeah, like I say, we'd love to kind of work with you and feature any new projects. And then lastly, you might have noticed this other checkbox here, which is the Kudos issues only. So I'm going to get onto this, but I mentioned that we're already talking with some teams about curating some issue lists. And so these issues are going to be tagged with a special Kudos label. And so these are going to signify a few things. One, that the issue is really well written and it's got the necessary context and potentially a mentor. Two, that it's got a clear difficulty level attached. And three, which is optional, that maybe there is an incentive linked. So I've mentioned that we've done some work on linking an issue with a custom incentive, but I'll get onto that in the next slides. So let me just move back to the presentation. Okay, yeah, just a quick meme there. Active contributors, we feel like it's really just the tip of the iceberg. We've got so many more people that really want to get involved. I was even speaking to someone that was at ETH Denver, and he had people coming up to him saying that they want to contribute, but they just don't really know where to start. And so, we're hoping that we can change that. For our next steps, we've kind of begun mapping out kind of what we want to build. I mentioned some of the things now. So one thing is like enhancing the navigation. Obviously, right now it's fairly basic. It's still a massive improvement on kind of what currently exists, but we feel like we can really supercharge it with a few new things. So yeah, we're going to try and increase the discovery of contributions. We're going to add project homepages for a start, so that you can see the most active repos, the most active teams. And I think this is also going to help for teams as well, right? Because if you've got a way to show which teams are like the most active. I think when it comes to applying for things like funding, when it comes to applying for things like grants, it's another kind of way to kind of demonstrate kind of like what you're doing as a team, right? The other thing that we're also thinking is rather than just a single Kudos issue, we're also thinking about Kudos milestones. And so a Kudos milestone would be more of like a longer-term kind of collaboration, right? So centered around a specific vision. And so this is kind of designed to, not so much like a bug bounty, but kind of similar. Like, so it would be like for a team to say, like, this is a kind of a longer-term thing, maybe 6 to 8 weeks. It's not a kind of a single-shot thing. And it's a kind of longer-term vision that you can share with contributors, collaborators. And I think the benefit for teams is that they get to really know the contributors that they're working with over a kind of an extended period of time. And if you've got a contributor who's doing good work for you, you're basically kind of vetting them to potentially join your team at some point later as well, right? So it's another way to kind of increase hiring. The other thing that we're looking to do is contributor profiles, metrics, so we can see who are the most active people that are actually contributing to the ecosystem, some leaderboards, and potentially a reputation system. And then the final thing that I think I'll just mention is that the community wish list. So this is another thing that I think is really key. We've already kind of started working on this one. But we think it would be great to have a unified location to have a community wish list. We know that there's a few fellowship members actually that have got wish lists that are out there floating around. I think Sean Tabrizi has got his kind of ecosystem wish list, things that he'd like to see created. I think he posted that on the forum. I think Brian Chen from Akala has got a wish list. I think it's floating somewhere as a GitHub gist. And we think it would be really powerful to aggregate this community wish list into one place, allow the community to upvote on things that they want to see built, and express their preferences. But also, it means that people that are stuck looking for things to build, they get a pre-validated idea. They get something that they can just can say, look, this has come down from the fellowship. This is something that they think is a really good thing to build, and you can start building it. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great thing. On the incentive side of things, we want to develop some workflows that are easy to integrate for existing projects. So we actually won a hackathon a couple of months ago, but this was for some work that we did which would allow a maintainer to link an issue to a smart contract, which would hold some incentive. And when that issue was closed, the person that actually submitted the fix or submitted the pull request would be able to claim from it. Obviously, that requires the maintainer to integrate some workflows, to integrate some of our smart contract templates. But we want to reduce the friction for maintainers. And so we're going to be introducing, as I mentioned, a kind of ecosystem-wide version of the tip bot. There's lots of chains that have got implemented the tipping palette, who've got kind of treasuries there, but are really, really inactive. And so we think that it could be a way to kind of spur some movement in that direction. And it doesn't require any integration. So it kind of brings me to the end of the talk. If anyone's got any question, feel free to ask me now. And if not, let me, if there are any questions, please let me know. I'd love to hear from anyone, maybe about things that you think we could improve or things that you'd like to see, things that we can add. Anyone got a question? No? Okay. If not, maybe I'll ask you guys a question then, which is back to these kind of two questions that we had as motivation is, how do you think that we should get more developers contributing, and how can we get win-win situations created between projects and contributors? Has anyone got any answers to this one for us? We got one there?
Yeah, so these issues, like aggregating all the GitHub issues, and there might be monetary rewards associated with it as well, or NFTs, and there could be tax implications and so forth as well.
Sure.
So are there going to be sort of what sort of liability or are they going to be exposed to? Like, is there going to be sort of like DAO foundations or like in terms of them joining? Like, for example, if there was like a recruitment agency that they could join in the interim that would cover their like insurances or anything like that that are associated with their contributions to certain repositories, there might be that kind of impact.
So are you saying about for contributors, like what would be the implications for them to kind of like work on any issues that have got like a monetary reward attached?
Yeah, they're, like, for example, if they're going to contribute to a repository, they might have to sign some disclaimer.
Yeah.
There might be, like, if it's got if there's monetary value involved, there might be some exposure there, so they might want to have some sort of protection. You know, they might receive some rewards, they might need to do their taxes and all that kind of stuff. So I guess that kind of onboarding as well. And if they ultimately end up joining a team or even becoming creating a product extension to one of these existing repositories, you know, what's the sort of on-ramp that's associated with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question, and maybe not one that we are trying to kind of solve. I mean, I think you know, if we look at like Polkadot SDK with the tip bot right now, I think obviously when you do contribute to Polkadot SDK, you do have to sign off on something. I think I did maybe once, but I can't remember what it was, quite a long document. But you sign off on something. I don't think that's maybe what we are looking at is like, you know, trying to bridge that gap particularly, but I think it is a really good question, you know, maybe something that we could consider. But I think if we look at how Polkadot SDK is kind of using the tip bot at the minute, they're pretty much just opening a treasury kind of tip when they want to reward someone for a contribution. And so we are just looking to kind of replicate that, but across the entire ecosystem. And yeah, I think maybe time's up. But yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I guess the man himself is going to be following. So yeah, thanks a lot.